I need you to hear this realization I had recently. I'm 24, I make $4 grand a month, and right now I work as a substance abuse counselor, and I'm actually a former addict myself. And in the beginning of 2023, I moved across the country and rebuilt my life from scratch. Everything that I ever knew, I literally left behind. I was able to leave a life of destruction and start completely fresh. So I know what uncertainty feels like. I chose it and I leaned into it, and it made sense for my situation. But here's what I'm currently facing. My situation is capped out, and I currently invest $1,500 a month on average into a high yield savings account and Roth IRA with a small allocation to Bitcoin and index funds. I've cut my expenses as far as they can go without losing my sanity or any sense of fun to be had. So I've stayed consistent with self-growth and bettering my situation as best as I possibly can. And now I'm studying for a new career that half the internet says is oversaturated and about to be replaced by AI. Rent keeps going up and people my age are still living at home and feeling lost. And somehow we're supposed to pretend this is just how adulthood works now. And the fact that pursuing a stable career is now considered risky or unrealistic is a problem. But here's the reality. We still have to play inside of this system, and we still have to build something, and we still have to win. And that's the tension no one wants to talk about. Most people right now aren't lazy. They're questioning whether it's even possible to build a stable life inside of a system that feels unstable. Because uncertainty used to mean you're taking a bold step, and now it just feels like the default. And right now, instability is normal. Living at home past 25 is normal. Being burnt out is normal. Scrolling yourself numb is normal. And eating like shit is normal. At this point, we've normalized dysfunction and just called it adulthood. And that's the part that doesn't sit right with me. But listen, sitting here complaining doesn't change anything. So this video isn't about complaining. It's about how you build leverage inside of an unstable system without pretending everything is fine. And this is how I'm choosing to win. But before we can talk about external factors that are in our control, let's talk about the internal ones. Because that's the most important part here that decides whether these decisions are practical or not. So look, most people right now are fragmented. And I'm not just saying that from the internet. I see it from people every day, especially in my line of work. I hear it in the way they talk, and I see it in how exhausted they look. Their sleep is wrecked, there's no movement, they have terrible diets, constant doom scrolling, their emotional regulation is shot. And listen, I know what that feels like. I remember being so reactive that one small inconvenience would ruin my entire day. Someone saying the wrong thing, a plan changing, or a small rejection, my whole nervous system would spike like it was a threat to my survival. And none of those things are going to enable you to actually build stability. They'll just contribute to your downfall. And listen, I'm not saying you have to be perfect or have every little aspect dialed in. Just 3 years ago when I moved across the country, I didn't have some grand vision. I moved because I had an opportunity and had already burned my old life into the ground. I was a crippling drug addict. I was like 140 pounds soaking wet, straight skin and bones. I had no discipline, no structure. I didn't trust myself. I didn't even know what version of me was real. I hardly ate, and when I did, it wasn't anything healthy, that's for damn sure. I isolated myself in content. I had zero control over my inputs and emotions. Like, I was about as cooked as one could get. It was the first time in years that I actually took any type of initiative over my life and the stability that I was desperately missing. Every decision I made before that was impulsive, emotional, and reactive. Like, I was either chasing a high or running from the consequences. And yeah, I stopped using, and that was the main contributor. I actually just hit my 3 years of sobriety in January this year, but I still have myself to deal with. So I was in treatment. I started small with getting consistent sleep and eating a better diet, and it wasn't perfect, but I noticed an immediate difference. I would actually attend yoga classes along with my treatment classes, which were surprisingly helpful. And then I started taking the gym seriously, and what mattered was that I was getting movement and not isolating myself. I met supportive friends out here who I now consider my new family. And at this point, I listened closely to the men around me who had gone through similar experiences and taught me how important discipline and consistency was. Those men taught me how to be an adult, and I remember one guy in particular telling me, stop negotiating with yourself. And it pissed me off at the time because I realized I negotiated everything. I negotiated waking up, working out, staying sober. I negotiated basic discipline. And he looked at me and said, that's why you don't trust yourself. And that stuck with me so much. And through that consistency and trusting the process, my emotions weren't foggy anymore, and I truly started to understand myself again. And the scrolling, well, I still struggle with it, but it's not 8 hours a day anymore. I take out my phone occasionally when I have some downtime, and I get my dopamine fix and try to leave it in the dirt. And I still enjoy junk food here and there. I have days where my emotions are all over the place when I struggle with fear, doubt, and comparison. I am far from perfect, and I'm still in the ugly middle of this journey, but I have some internal stability now, and that has translated throughout my whole life. So when people talk about instability now, I almost laugh a little, and not because it's funny, but because I know what real instability feels like. And most of what we're dealing with right now externally, it amplifies whatever you already are internally. So if you're grounded, you'll adjust. If you're scattered, you're gonna spiral. Because I've lived inside internal chaos, and what I learned is this: the world can be unstable, but if you're unstable too, you're finished. That's why the sleep mattered. That's why the gym mattered. That's why forcing myself into yoga classes full of people who are better than me mattered. And doom scrolling while algorithms pump outrage and AI slop into your brain is going to keep you stuck in the problem. You cannot build a stable future with an unstable mind. And I've tried. I tried to plan a future when I couldn't even trust myself to follow through on tomorrow. It doesn't work. You just end up frustrated at yourself. And here's the part no one tells you. Internal stability isn't feeling calm all the time. It's about being predictable to yourself. So when you say you're going to wake up at 7 a.m., you do it. When you say you're going to the gym, you go. When you say you're going to study for an hour, you don't negotiate with yourself. And in a world that feels very unpredictable, you have to become the one predictable thing in your own life. And once I learned how to build some internal stability, that's when I started looking at my decisions differently. Because if I'm being honest, most of my bad decisions in life didn't come from being stupid. They came from reacting. I'd always quit something before I ever had a plan, or I'd cut people off instead of having those hard conversations. I'd convince myself that a big move was the answer instead of a disciplined one. And the world outside already feels unstable, so reacting like that just makes everything worse. And that's what a lot of people are doing right now. They're not stupid, they are just tired and scared. They're making big decisions from a place of urgency instead of clarity. And urgency feels productive, but it usually isn't. So now when I look at the job market or AI or rent going up, I notice the urge to panic. Like, it's there. There's this voice that says move faster, do something dramatic, quit, or bet big before it's too late. But I don't move off that voice anymore, because that voice isn't wisdom, it's pressure. And that pressure is everywhere right now. The economy is unstable, the job market is cooked. Social media makes it feel like everyone else is sprinting constantly. So of course your brain wants to rush. But I've learned to slow down. Shrinking the risk for me isn't some genius strategy. It's just not letting fear make the call. And here's what that actually looks like. Not quitting your job impulsively because you're just frustrated. Not taking on debt for a boot camp because Twitter told you it's the fastest way in. Or not betting your entire future on one trend hoping that it all works out. It's building quietly, and for me that looks boring, but boring is what's going to build that stability. So look, I'm currently studying data analytics. I'm getting the Google certification right now. I'm learning what the interviewers actually expect, and I'm building real projects as we speak in the domains that I already understand, which is healthcare and behavioral health, which are huge industries out here in California. I'm talking to people in the field already and growing my network, so I'm not just cold applying everywhere. This is reducing volatility in your own life even if the economy is volatile. I'm stacking skills and calculating my moves as I continue to save my runway, and that's exactly what I'm doing right now. And yeah, maybe the field is competitive, maybe AI changes it, maybe it takes longer than I want, but that doesn't mean that I freeze. And it doesn't mean that I swing blindly. It just means that I build slower and smarter. 3 years ago, I leaned into chaos. This time, I'm leaning into preparation. Because here's the thing. 3 years ago, chaos made sense for me. I had nothing structured, nothing stable, and I needed a full reset. And today, I've built something. I have savings, habits, a reputation, discipline, and I'm not lighting that on fire because the internet feels loud. And the internet is very loud right now. Every week, it's a new collapse or a new disruption, a new this career is dead, or if you're not doing this, you're behind. If you don't learn how to filter that, it'll control your decisions without you even realizing it. The world might be volatile, but I don't have to be. You're not going to win the fight with instability by being impulsive, but you can still win by reducing volatility in your own life, even if the economy is volatile. And listen, once I stopped reacting, I started thinking about something else. I want you to think about this. What actually makes someone hard to destabilize long term? And I realize it's not just about income, it's also about leverage. I don't just want a higher salary, I want options. Because when I was using, I had 0 options. If someone kicked me out, I genuinely had nowhere to go. I didn't have savings, I didn't have discipline, I didn't even have the confidence to walk into a room and ask someone for help. That's what no leverage looks like. It's not just financial, it's also psychological. There wasn't a backup plan. I didn't have a second skill, no savings, no community. That's what real instability feels like. And a lot of people are closer to that edge than they realize. All it takes is one job loss, one emergency expense, one breakup, one bad month, and everything feels like it's collapsing. That's not weakness, that's a lack of margin. Now look, I'm early in this stage. I'm not ahead and I'm not established, but I'm building in a way that gives me more room to breathe. Data analytics isn't just about getting a job for me, it's about building a skill I can eventually freelance. It's about building upon my understanding of systems and automation. I've been trying to freelance automation for businesses and it's been a lot more challenging than I thought it would be. But this is about laying the groundwork for something I can own one day instead of always renting my income from someone else. And this is how I'm doing it. Same thing with this channel. I'm not delusional and I know YouTube doesn't blow up overnight, but if I can build a small extra income here, and if I can build a community of people who actually care about this message, if I can document this journey honestly, then that's leverage too. Because now my income isn't coming from one place. My identity isn't coming from one role and my future isn't tied to one employer. I'm building layers. And some nights that looks like me sitting at my desk after work, tired as hell, finishing up a video or a portfolio project. And not because I'm motivated, but because I said I would. It is not glamorous, it's not always content worthy, it's just repetition. So saving, skills, network, audience, because I've lived what it feels like to not have those things, and I'm not going back to that. And none of that makes me bulletproof, but it makes me harder to knock over. And that's what leverage is for me. It's not flexing online, it's not optimization hacks. It's creating enough surface area in your own life so that one hit doesn't take you out. And I think that's why so many people feel anxious right now. It's not weakness, it's fragility. If one thing goes wrong, everything shakes. So I'm building in a way where if one path slows down, I pivot. If tech changes, I adapt. If YouTube grows, great. If it doesn't, I still gain communication skills and relationships. That's the mindset. Not chasing one big escape, building multiple small foundations that will compound into something bigger. And look, if you felt frustrated lately, or if you've questioned whether something feels off, or if you felt like you're doing everything right and still behind, you're not weak. You're responding to a system that is actually more volatile than the ones that our parents walked into. We didn't choose this system, but we are responsible for how we move inside of it. I'm not pretending this is normal. Rent being insane isn't normal. The job market being this volatile isn't normal. People feeling this fragmented isn't normal. But I've already lived through internal chaos once. I'm not recreating it just because the outside world feels shaky. Because I've already seen what happens when I let external chaos dictate my behavior. I spiral, I overcorrect, I burn bridges, I make moves just to feel in control again, and I'm not doing that this time. And volatility doesn't mean defeat, it just means that you build differently. But we're not going to sit around and spiral about this either. This channel is about building discipline, leverage, and real direction in real time, not pretending everything's perfect and not blaming the world for everything either. If that resonates with you, consider liking and subscribing. I'm documenting this entire journey, the career pivot, the skill building, the wins, the setbacks, all of it. And if you want to be a part of a community of people who are serious about building something inside of this chaos instead of just complaining about it, drop a comment and let me know what you're working towards right now or even what you're struggling with. Because we're not going to sit here and keep normalizing dysfunction. We're going to build anyway. So as always, if you made it this far, I appreciate you. And peace out.